Hey, greetings, fellow slingers. It's your trusted GM Brian, and welcome back to another one of our Hard Slingers panel. This time, bookending our mid-season finale of our Bloodlords run-through. You know, it was always an intention of mine to be sure to not let the seasons run too long, and unfortunately, we did go long for Dragon's Demand. Too long. Well, like anyone eating the same thing, although it might taste great, every once in a while, you need that palate cleanser. And we have a bit of a palate cleanser on the horizon. And who better to prep the threshold before we begin our season 13 than the hard slingers of Yore, Sam, Tone, and your trusted GM, as we talk about the systems we played and where the show's going. So in an effort to not break continuity, let's warm up our ice and top off our glass as Roll the Hard 20 podcast presents Bloodlords, episode 19, the Hard Slingers of Yore panel. You know, I don't really think we're gonna need the dice for this one, so let's just double down on the topping off of the glass. So how's everyone doing?
Doing well, Brother Ryder. How about you?
Good.
Exactly.
We're putting together a little Hard Slingers panel. Basically we just finished up season 11 of our Bloodlords run through, and it's the first half of book 1 because we got other things on the palette, don't we, brothers?
Yes,
Indeed.
we do.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of talk about Bloodlords a little bit. I know, Tone, you jumped in kind of on the back end. But we're going to do a little bit of a comparison. I know it's might seem a little off the wall here, but a comparison between Delta Green, made by Arc Dream Publishing, and say Dungeons and Dragons, or even Paizo's Pathfinder 2E, which is what we're currently playing. But before we begin, let's give a round of applause to who we are. I got my brother Sam, my brother Tone, my Hard Slingers of Yore.
Well,
And of course, I am your trusted GM / handler / DM, Brian.
40 years of crits and fumbles
All
on
over
and
the
off
place.
the game board.
Mostly just trying to be articulate. And those are my greatest fumbles right there. So
I like the words you come up with. They're not in the dictionary, but they're work.
yeah, they have a certain resonance.
Yeah, they work. Like gription. Everyone knows what gription is. It's on the bottom of your fucking shoes, right?
Yeah.
It's got good gription. It's not in the dictionary, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So I think our biggest thing right now is that we've been playing Pathfinder 2E, and it's a 3-action economy. And of course, it has different aspects than, say, Delta Green.
Delta Green's all about the realism. So, like, no healing, no magic, or if there is
No hope.
magic. Yeah, exactly. It will kill you, and if you use it, you have to make a sanity check. And the biggest problem I have with it is, by the time your character gets to the peak of his abilities, he's gone insane. And but for our creative methodology of regaining sanity points, it would be a dead-end game. And I never understood it. Even back when we were going, remember the old gaming conventions? Remember when they were back at the Wyndham Hotel? You know, way back in the day in L.A., by the airport.
Sheridan, the Hilton.
Talking about playing Call of Cthulhu, and it was like, yeah, that sounds like a great game. And then they talked about sanity and how your character loses sanity the further along he progresses in the game. And I always thought that was a mechanical break, because how do you get attached to a character that ultimately becomes unplayable?
Yeah. Well, the thing is with what's that, Ryder?
The alien back there.
Oh, the head hanging. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The thing is the difference between Delta Green and say games like D&D and Paizo. Delta Green, you're not a hero. You are holding the flood back, finger in the dam. I used a nice word there instead of the other one. Holding back all these leaks before this flood, this tide of, cosmic horror.
It's inevitable.
Engulfs the world. Like, you're not a hero. In D&D, well, let me specifically talk D&D. In D&D in the old days, it was very lethal, but you also could wade into 5, 6 kobolds knowing that they're going to do 1 to 2 points of damage or something, and you're just slaughtering them because they have 1 to 2 points of, hit points. So you're able to feel heroic. It's not the real world. Delta Green is more real world. D&D is more like you're reading Conan. You're reading, fantasy novels and things like that. And then Paizo is kind of this is the first time I played Paizo with Bloodlords. It's kind of straddling the two where I want to be a hero, but I'm finding out that, if I have 3 actions and special moves, so does every other friggin' first level monster that I'm facing. We got giant rats that are taking down dwarven warriors with like plagues and sickness and all this. And there we go. That was a bad version, but it's like you almost can't be heroic in that the same way you could in D&D, even though D&D was very lethal. Like Paizo, you got a little bit more hit points, a little bit more movement. You can do things, but every monster you face is equal to you, if not even worse. And that's at first level. I can't imagine what it's going to be later on. We finally made level 2 in the previous episode, or one of the previous episodes, depending on when you're listening now. And you get more hit points, you get more abilities, but so does the enemy.
Yeah, and I remember back in the old day playing old school D&D where you could be that hero and things are still very lethal, even for your player character. You used to have usually like a folder of a couple of them that you could just get ready.
Cat scratch would kill a first level wizard.
But as the additions progressed, it became much more difficult for that PC to perish. And I think that Paizo with their Pathfinder 2e kind of brings that back to the forefront, where it is more capable to knock a player character down and keep it down and keep punishing it, depending on what kind of GM you are as well. And
bloodthirsty.
Yeah, bloodthirsty. I've never been called that before. And then you look at something like Delta Green, which we're saying is more real world, and you're just trying to push the expiration date further out because of the inevitable. And like Tone, I know you've said that about the insanity and how that takes you down. You said it for a long time, and it can be that way. I think that Arc Dream has come up with a creative way of making it to where you can continue to play the character by burning off the bonds and making your downtime more involved with your character than
it's more of a role-playing game too.
Rather than just showing up for the op, performing the op, and then you leave either completely insane or partially insane or whatever. Because even seeing somebody die, you never get used to that kind of death. Seeing the unnatural, you never get used to that. Seeing something with tentacles burst out of the light sockets, you never get used to that. So you're constantly taking these damages. You got a teammate that goes insane, so you got to chuck his body into a wood chipper. You're going to go insane. You start taking these damages. And then at the end of the op, you're like, okay, well, my guy's down so much and my breaking point was at this point. And then you end the op. But to take it one step further and actually do like what we did with the epilogues, which I want to start making a more common thematic element on the show, people as like well as the prologues. Yeah, people really enjoyed the epilogues where you delve into what the characters are doing when they're not on the op. And I want to see them start to break their bonds to try to get their sanity back, and then have to fix those bonds if they can, or to find out that their wife is going to leave them and has moved on and maybe is with somebody else, and how that directly affects the agent while they're on an op or something. But
it makes no sense to me that you think that would contribute to their insanity.
It might, well, it may not. Yeah, I mean, it might be something that Odessa relishes.
He had to burn a bond with his wife.
Children are gone.
Yeah, he had to burn a bond with his wife, and now he's riding motorcycles and dating a bunch of people and just having an awesome time. And the prince lived happily ever after. No, but think about
make a fortitude save.
Yeah, think about like Breaking Bad, right? And replace the meth with like this cosmic horror. Walter White, speaking of Heisenberg as our handler, he burned bonds with his wife, with his kids, with his job, with his family. He did all these things to retain being able to live in this world of that meth dealer. And that's what our guys are doing.
That's a really great analogy, Sammy. That really, I could see that. Yeah.
But that's how it is.
The unnatural.
To be Heisenberg, he had to do all these things. Like imagine your handler guy, what he must have done to retain that position and that presence as Heisenberg. Like it's very similar to that. And you never get into that in D&D or the Paizo Pathfinder stuff, but that's what a lot of Delta Green is about. And if you don't do any of that and just kind of play the game like, oh, I lost some sanity with my family. It's like doing those epilogues really brought it home. Like, Tone, Odessa's fucked, man. I get to be a cool ass fucking werewolf, but you're fucked. You're losing half your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds cool to be a werewolf, but there might actually be a cross to bear with that.
It's fucking awesome either way. I'm good.
Yeah, but can you imagine like being with somebody when this change undergoes, somebody that you care about, and finding that you end up shredding up somebody that you have deep respect for, or somebody that you're falling in love with, and you wake up and that person is just shredded in half of their
family,
their flesh
kid,
is
wife.
In your belly at this point.
My sensei,
yeah. Can you imagine how that might
Odessa? Someone's gonna have to comfort his wife. I mean, they're already on a rocky relationship. So.
Make a sanity check.
Hey, Sana, you're from Sweden. You know I did the art for Hammerfall, right?
Yeah, there we go.
But I definitely, I definitely find myself angled towards enjoying Delta Green much more than I thought I would. Like it's leagues ahead of where I feel as far as D&D is concerned. And I really like Pathfinder 2e also. I really enjoyed that, but there's just something about the real world of Delta Green that when you're playing it, you could almost relate to it on a personal level. Like, I think I pulled up for Sins of the Father that it was across the way from the San Onofre power plant. Now, we know where that is because we've all driven past it when we'd go down to San Diego or whatever. Yeah, so it's a tangible, unlike Galarian, which has different portions. It's got... I'm going to totally space. It's got Geb, and it's
a random fantasy name.
Magnemar.
That could be anything else.
It's got all these different places which are likened to places on Earth, but to actually be journeying through certain cities, like for the latest one that I'm putting together for Auction 127, it starts off in New York. Well, I went on Google and I started actually locating specific things that I wanted to be here and there in relation to the distances and stuff, so you guys that have been to New York and say, I know exactly where the fuck that's at.
Big Bear, dude.
Yeah,
First episode we went to our cabin.
Yes, that was cool.
Yeah.
D&D. So the thing is that's great about it is like you have different tastes. Sometimes like just with your palate, you're hungry for this. You want Italian or Mexican or Japanese, whatever. D&D to me, if you were looking at it as like beverages, D&D is like Coca-Cola for our young listeners. Or, just good, cheap American beer or good European beer. That's D&D and Paizo. Delta Green is spirits, wine, stuff like that. It's stuff that you really have to be able to comprehend the tastes and all that sort of stuff. It's different things. Like when you want to party, you want to play D&D. When you want to get deep and be philosophical, Delta Green. That's kind of... it's the difference between, reading works of Robert E. Howard or Shakespeare. It's like, do you want deepness and all that, or do you want energy and power? Like D&D to me is energy and power. Delta Green is X-Files meets Cthulhu. You're thinking, you're not fighting, maybe at the end, and you're probably going to die, so don't fight.
Right. The only thing I would say about the Pathfinder system is it's very, very rule complex. There's a lot of things that are going on. A lot of things that take place when you have to activate one ability to access 3 other tiers of abilities. And then when you do that, there's rules for those. And it's I think it ruins the immersion. Like,
I will say,
okay, say again. Go ahead,
I said, I will say it's because it's a new system for us. D&D is the exact same for a new person.
Think so?
Yeah, I think so. Like you remember when you were first playing D&D, how like complex the spells were and this and that, a turn versus a round and all this kind of stuff. Like I agree. I think
it back in the day. It was like, I'm going to attack. Great. Roll.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What do you need? You need this. There you hit him. Okay, you're done.
Also, are you playing a character? You're playing a character that's not in the base rules, right?
I don't think so.
So it's like in D&D terms, the unearthed arcana or whatever, like the deeper ones. Like I remember, a fighter in D&D is basic as hell, but if you're playing a barbarian, you got these rules that you can't wear. This is old D&D. Can't wear anything heavier than leather armor. You have to have a minimum score of this and that and the other, and it's got all these things like you have to be this way if you want to be enraged or whatever. Like I think you're playing one of the more complex characters. That's why when I was starting with Bloodlords, I just played a monk because I didn't want to play a normal fighter because Cruz was already kind of tanking that. I wanted to be something like a rogue fighter-ish thing, but I hate the rogues nowadays and all these, no offense, D&D and Paizo, they're all these like wily guys with, two different blades and they're all savoir-faire and all that. It's like, no, I want a rogue, like a dirty ass agent dude that's skulking in the shadows. So I played a monk that way,
Oh, see, that's the thing. What I remember the D&D being was, all right, you're a magic user. We didn't get bogged down in some of the minutia with spell components and casting times and all those other things.
That was always dumb, I thought. The spell components.
Well, it's too much. I want to roll. This is what I want to do. Obviously, the inherent flaws in the system come to the fore when it's like, yeah, you're a level 1 magic user. You cast sleep. Now you're done for the day. You have nothing else to do. So,
and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's why it evolved beyond that, though, too.
So now you just throw daggers for like 20 different rounds.
Exactly. For the rest of the encounter, that's all you're doing because that's all you can do. And there are ways to fix that. The cantrips are nice.
Cantrips are awesome. In Monster Manual, or what is it, Unearthed Arcana? I love that. I think that's when they introduced cantrips. I thought that was great because if a fighter can attack with a sword for 1d8, why can't a wizard do, or warlock, whatever, Eldritch Blast for 1d8? Because it's still the same damage and it's range. So if a fighter or ranger can do 1d8 with an arrow, why can't a wizard? And the wizard, if he gets encountered, he's got a worse armor class than a ranger or a fighter. He's going to get smoked. So you got to be maneuverable. But that was the thing I always liked about cantrips. It made a wizard feel heroic because before, like you said, cast sleep or magic missile, woo, 2 to 5 damage. I might kill a kobold or the cat that can kill me.
Yeah. And that was only one of them. Your party's encountering 6. So you put to sleep maybe one of them, 2 of them, and now you're done for the whole day. So I get the cantrips and I understand where the 2E is coming from, but there's just so many different rules. And well, I suppose when I get used to it, the stuff will be second nature. And it's like anything else, right? You pick out your favorites, you play 2 or 3 different classes, you get to know them really well, and that's it. You never venture out. Even though now with this new system, there's like 30 different classes. You can do all kinds of stuff.
That's the thing about games that have to last forever. I deal with this with my day job with, games like World of Warcraft. And that's the newest Warcraft game, compared to like Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. It's been out for 20 years now. And it's like you always have to come up with new dungeons or new continents and new environments, new all this stuff. And it's like, well, you got to you got to make it fun to play. That's the first thing. Gameplay first, after art, I always say. But gameplay first, but then you got to figure out in the lore. It's like, how did this continent rise up out of nowhere? Now there's this new thing. But when you have a game that's going on forever, and games like D&D, people like us who have played it, we were playing probably the second generation of it. The first guys were playing it in
the
late 70s. And we started playing in the early 80s. And in its heyday, it was like, 86 to 88 was the big time when it was real popular for us, and 85 to 86, whatever. But now you got these new generations playing it, and they've played all this stuff, but now you need to have these weird races like crystal people that you can't relate to, or weird races that are mushroom people that you can't relate to, and weird classes that you go, well, what is it? Well, it's like a warlock, a thief, a rogue. Well, aren't a thief and a rogue the same thing? No. A rogue is this, a thief is like, fuck. I just want to be the big guy with the sword. Everyone get behind the big guy with the sword and the shield, right? It's like that's the thing. It's like you lose sort of those iconic roles when you keep doing these systems forever and ever and ever. And that's why, just like with games like Games Workshop, hey, we're releasing our Space Marines. Wait a minute, you already did that. No, this is the new Space Marines.
This is the Primarch Space Marines.
So there's new miniatures. Okay, I get that. They're cooler looking, but now we have updated rules. It's like,
what are they on 10th edition rules for Games Workshop?
Well, you either recreate the old shit It's like, oh, do we need a new fighter? Do we need a new Space Marine? Or you come up with these new classes, and they're just weird because they're not hearkening to legacies that you know. And it's like,
Well,
there's
I've
some
seen that.
classes that are cool, but there's some that are just like, this is wankery in the first degree.
I've seen that
Yeah.
with like a lot of the D&D stuff where they'll keep running Tomb of Horrors for, first edition and then third edition and fourth edition, now fifth edition. And they'll do the same thing with the Hidden Shrine of Tomoakon or the Sunless Citadel. It's like, how many different times do we need to play the same things in the same areas? Why not branch out and do something different? Why do we keep doing the same things? Why do we want to rehash a lot of this stuff? So
Yeah, it's like remaking episodes of like old TV shows. Like if they wanted to, like, well, here's Seinfeld in, the new edition. It's like, just watch the old Seinfeld.
Yeah.
If I'm going to play the Hall of the Giant or what is it? The
Frost Giant Jarl.
Glacier Rift, the Frost Giant Jarl, the Hall of the Fire Giant King, whatever it is. I'd rather just play the second edition D&D and do that. I don't want to play it in the new editions where I can do all these special moves, and it's just not as fun. I'd rather just play the old stuff. And that's the problem with a lot of games nowadays is you could just buy the Dungeon Master's Guide and Player's Handbook and Monster Manual. And I'll even argue that you don't even need to buy the Monster Manual. If you don't want to, you can make your own. But that's the fun. Like, you need those 3 books. That's all you need. And now there's supplemental stuff that's great. I'm still a fan of the Barbarian, the Cavalier from the Unearthed Arcana. But you don't really need that. But a lot of times, like, to keep these games going, you got to release these new supplemental books.
Well, that's like the lifeblood of any company. Once you release enough stuff where you fill all the niches, then you just got to move on to the next edition. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where you start seeing other companies do that. I know that Wizards, what they're doing is I think they're doing something with a monthly payment now as they move into D&D 5.5 or whatever it is, and that it's all going to go digital. And I don't know if that's true or not, because honestly, I don't buy any more D&D stuff. I got plenty of D&D stuff on my shelves where just because they come up with a new edition doesn't make these any less viable. But that was one of the reasons why we went with Paizo to do Pathfinder 2e, because it does seem like a different system that kind of scratched that itch that we had. But I think that now that we've done what we've done with Bloodlords, where we're going to take this break and then we're actually going to start fielding more Delta Green seasons, I think that's what we all want to go to. That's what we're all heading towards. And I think they're a little quicker, a little faster to go through, and more engaging as well. Plus, I think they're pretty relatable as far as like as a player to your character. Like, what would you do? Well, I'm going to jump off a cliff and I'm going to fly with my wings. Well, no, because they don't have that. I'm not going to breathe fire. I'm not going to be pulling out swords and shooting magic missiles, because it's not really who you are. But you as an individual, if you got to hunker down behind a wreck of a car and pull out a pipe because you don't have a weapon, a handgun with you, and something's creeping down like a cultist, and you could almost feel the tension of that,
Yeah. As Kimura brought his tired jack to go fight werewolves.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Go ahead, brother.
No, it was right. It's Delta Green's an entirely different playing style. You can't be the hero, just like what you were saying, Sammy. You cannot be the hero. There is no healing. You get hit for 6 points, your character is now suffering and possibly bleeding out,
half dead.
And, yeah, that's it. You lose all your hit points, you die. Your character's done, and there's no resurrection. The first aid kit doesn't give you hit points back.
There's
it
no
just
zero.
Stabilizes where you are. Yeah, at
zero
best case,
is death.
Yeah. So we've been close to that point a couple times where it's like, this has now gone south on us.
Dude.
We cannot continue this mission because we're damaged. There,
I was down to 2.
Cleric.
You were down to 1.
Yeah.
And the only reason we survived, I think, is by grace of the handler at that time.
Yeah, because I think technically at 1 you go unconscious.
And that's conscious. But that's the thing with like Delta Green. It's like, oh, you have 1 hit point? Yeah, you're almost dead. You can't move. It's like, well, fuck. Well, that's the thing where you got to differentiate the gameplay versus real world. Like, in my opinion, if you're at 1 hit point, that means you're still up.
Yeah.
That means you're fighting on your last legs. You're Rocky against Ivan Drago. You're standing there dead on your feet. You can still move. You can still punch and do damage. And then the next hit sends you down. Right. But the idea that's like, well, you have 1 hit point. That means that you can't walk and you have, you're bleeding. It's like, no. Come on. This is a game, first of all. Gameplay first, after art, as I said.
Yeah.
But you got, it's like, you got to make the game compelling. If it's like, well, you're down to half hit points, so now you're at half speed. It's like, well, fuck, that's not fun. I've had it where I've had a fever and all that, and I've been able to run around and do all kinds of things still,
I thought the best compromise for as you start dipping down into the lower hit points is to start suffering penalties on your skills, like your marksmanship or whatever may suffer by 20% if you're down to like 2 hit points or whatever. Your odds of you aiming straight because you're losing blood or you're losing focus or you've got a concussion or something, or you get down to 1 hit point, you drop it down like another 20%, and that's more realistic of somebody that's pretty fucked up at that point, where you may not be able to sight somebody. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but you're also not at tip top shape. Well, I still got 1 hit point left, and I can still keep going.
Well, I would say then, as a professional game designer, that if that's the case for the gameplay, then at full health, you should be at higher marksmanship and all that. So when you play the game, because we're playing a game here, we want to have fun. It's checkers, it's chess, it needs to be balanced. So at full health, I'm at plus whatever, if it's Delta Green or, Paizo, D&D, I'm at +1 or +2 to hit. And then when I get down, yeah, but I have that already, right?
Well, look at it this way. Okay.
But I should even have an even more sort of thing. Because because
you're trained in it, so you would add another 20% to your stat that you already have, which gives
you don't have this in Delta Green. You have it in D&D.
No, they do have it. Well, they do have it in Delta Green, where like if you have 10% and then you're actually trained in it for 20%, it would make it 30%. So we'll just use like
health.
I thought you were talking about like success.
Yeah, so if health is going to affect my shooting, like if I'm below half health or at 2 hit points, I'm at -20%. I got my fingers curled and I got my Glocks pointed. Then at full health, I should have a plus, right? Or it should go from plus to 0 to negative. Then it's one thing. But if it's you get lower, you get less hit points. It's like, well, what's the point of playing the game then? What's the bonus? Like, where's the fun? It's like there's no point in, if you're going to constantly be degraded in your gameplay, the more you lose hit points. Well, that's just not fun. That's not even real life. If I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tail, I'm feeling good for the day. If I'm hungover, I'm obviously less good at shooting, whatever. But even then, I've had some of my greatest days hungover as a dwarf.
But look at it this way. Say you're trained in something and you get an extra 30%. We'll just say that. But the original stat bonus that you got was based off of either strength or dex. Okay, or intelligence or whatever. That is the bonus right there. Because you were at full strength or dex or constitution or whatever. And as you start lowering things, as you start lowering your abilities because of the damage you take, that would actually reflect that. Now, you don't have to take it off of your 6 stats that you have.
I get it. If I'm shot in the leg and I can't move as
it's
fast,
more flavor. That's something that
dex.
we do on our show. I don't think anybody else does that. It's just something that we've done. And I think that we've only toyed with it a little bit in Under a Pale Moon, but that was because you guys were dealing with werewolves and shit like that. Spoiler alert if you haven't listened to it yet.
Well, the idea, like, you had a great thing where,
thank you.
Again, spoiler, Muha was a werewolf, but he regenerated less than, spoiler, Macklemore, because Macklemore was young, vibrant, and all that, and he had his regen factor. Macklemore didn't have the regen factor, but he still had it.
No, he had it.
That's what I'm saying. Muha didn't. I'm sorry. Muha still had it. So, Macklemore might have done 3 or 2 around. Muha did 1, but he still had it. So it was a positive, but it was just a negative to positive. So that's why I'm saying, like, if you're down in hit points, Or like old D&D did it with age too. Like when you were considered venerable, you were -2 in strength. It's like, okay, I get it, but we're not playing real life. If my guy's Conan the King, he's not weaker than he ever was. He's always the badass Conan, you know? Like that's the difference in gameplay versus storytelling versus a game that's like more based in real life versus, fantasy.
What I like
Rambling topics here. Sorry, listeners. Tone, what do you got to say?
Well, the good thing about the Paizo system is having those hero generator sheets that keep track of all your bonuses. That does make the gameplay a lot.
Hero
easier.
Labs.
Hero Labs, thank you.
Yeah,
that makes the gameplay a lot easier. Because
that's not theirs though. That's a completely different company though. That's by Lone Wolf.
Yeah, Lone Wolf Studios. Hats off
to
you. It makes the gameplay a lot easier to simply look at the sheet and say, "Oh, look here, +7 to hit on melee. Great."
Yeah, I like Hero Labs a lot. It's been great.
Yeah, it has made learning this system a lot easier.
And I haven't used it on my end, being the GM, but from everything no, I don't use it.
So what about Reva? What's his stats? GM.
I have them right here.
Oh, so you wrote them out on paper?
I didn't write them out. I printed them out.
Oh, there we go.
One of the great things, so beloved listeners, some of the characters that the writer has made, they're not characters from the book. So if you remember, was it Dragon's Demand with guys like Heinrich? Yeah. If you remember Batu from the Riders of the Storm, and if Reva, these are all just made up dudes, and they're some of the most stellar cast members of these shows, and it's just all from writers' little brain
intellect.
There.
Thank you, brothers. I appreciate
it's his
that.
IP.
And the role playing is great too. They all seem to have accents though. Like, you ever do one that doesn't have an accent?
What fun would that be?
No, not really. No.
Remember Batu?
Ruby.
Good times. Yeah, no, I totally remember that. No, I don't. I think unless you're talking with somebody that's working at a gas station, or I think even that guy kind of had the hi, don't look at my eyes.
Oh, that's right. The one with the Velociraptors, right?
Yeah. What was that? Future Perfect.
Yeah, and he had his house where his dad was up there. Yeah, he was like a total like fucking Jeff Spicoli type dude.
Yeah, totally growing buds and shit. But I think that even the
Macklemore or Makamura. He's great too.
Makamura. But even like a lot of the sheriffs or the medical examiners, they all tend to have some kind of a twang to them or whatever, depending on where the agents wind up in. But yeah, I like to.
That's good storytelling.
Little flavor.
Immediately know what you're dealing with, and that's a good thing. With storytellers, it's like the first 2 seconds. Excuse me. You know who you're. What you're dealing with. You get a picture and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to build the audience rapport. If they don't identify with the character, or at least can identify them, what's the point? You've alienated your audience. Now they're just listening. And you can do that on radio.
Well, the last thing we ever want to do is alienate our audiences, because I believe that all of our fellow slingers, all of our fellow listeners out there are having just as much fun as we're having playing the game. Mm-hmm. And what can I say? Everybody out there is going to be enjoying it to some degree.
Well, I'll give you guys an example. So both of you, and maybe you can say it at the same time after I say this. Do you guys remember what the bums sound like in Terminator?
Did you see a really bright light?
Yeah, that was the only lines this dude had, other than "he took my pants."
So much took my pants.
But that's what I mean. You remember it immediately, and it's oh, it's a bum. Well, what are you going to have the bum go? In the deep times, this person can't. It's like, no, just what's a bum sound like? What's a dude who's kind of on his last legs or whatever? Like, it was perfect. And how old? 30-something years ago that movie came out, and you guys remember?
84.
Yeah, nerd.
84 years ago.
84 years ago.
Yeah.
Tony is 110.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, it's very iconic, and the way that you do a lot of the NPCs, it's like that. You can remember. It's like, oh, Riva, he has this kind of Russian or Romanian, or what we perceive as Russian or Romanian because we watched movies. That's cool. You got to immediately know what it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
shit.
I have a good time putting together the voices. I have a good time playing the games. I like running my brothers through, my hard slingers of Yore through stuff. That really, to me, I think I really relish that. I enjoy doing that because, I have no inhibitions about doing the voices, or even if I totally screw something up, which most instances we can edit that stuff out. But for the most part, we've been playing for, I don't know how many years together, how many decades we've been
Since I was
Literally
slinging dice.
decades,
17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel any inhibitions whatsoever. You guys don't judge
35
me. You
years.
guys love it and laugh at it and have fun.
Absolutely.
Just like I
Hell
love
yeah.
it when you guys are doing your things. I know I've seen Agent Odesso do certain things that I just can't help but laugh. Like when he'll come through, all right, man, I'm going to start running this show and flipping out the badge, even though it's totally fucking fake. And
I love
you
that.
you see
It's
Han
the
doing
best
his
prop in the
stuff.
world. Here's my FBI badge. See, you have to do what I said. I got a badge. And from
It's
the
like a
feds.
desk. We're at a strip joint. Put it away.
Talk about, man, this is good for free drinks.
Yeah.
But I think we've got what we were looking for tonight. I just wanted to put a little bit of comparison out there, and so you guys have anything else you want to add to what we've got going on?
I love the 3-action economy on Paizo. I think that D&D should adapt that. I mean, we kind of always did stuff like that in our old games, but I really like that. Now, I don't agree that the monsters have that as well. I still think that the monsters should always be a step behind the characters, and the way that you overcome that is by adding more monsters. The worst thing you can do is have 5 characters surrounding a skull fairy and getting your asses kicked. If it's a dragon, it's one thing. If it's a little pixie from the netherworld, it's like,
That's
that
what kills me.
just sucks.
Skull Fairy. That thing was fucking awesome. Yeah, and there's also a point where it can come and tear your head off.
Yeah,
And it's a
apparently
fairy.
by
It's
me
called a
saying
skull
I drag
demon, or,
yeah,
something.
when I said I drag Cruz out the room or whatever it was, Ryder was like, good, because he was about ready to get his head torqued after that.
Yeah. How about cranium crawler or something? Something giving it a little more menace than
Yeah,
Skull
some kind of
Fairy.
giant centipede or something,
Yeah.
like a skull burrower or something. But
Yeah, exactly.
apparently, the
Cranium
dude
crawler.
who was laying on the ground, the wizard, had his head blown out like he was listening to Manowar in 1984. It's like, thankfully we
go.
saved Cruz. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been going to Riva and wouldn't have been able to have that great little interaction between Riva and Cruz in the episode. Was it 17, 18, Ryder?
17.
17. A winger.
Is it 17 or 18? I think it's 17.
I
No,
saw
it's
Blood
18.
Lords 15 just came
Yeah.
out.
It's 18. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the song loses all its purpose when it says she's only 18. It's like, great, she's Leo, whatever. 17. Yeah, we'll cut that out too. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
All right,
well,
so Ryder, finish
Yeah.
us off here. Top
Yep.
us off, GM.
All right. Well, my fellow slingers out there, thank you for spending your time with the three of us, hard slingers of Yore. Just a little bit of insight on what we feel about some of the systems and how we played a few of them. I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's just something that we just felt like every once in a while we want to just put a little tangent finger on, so you guys could kind of hear us when we're not playing characters and hear us when we've kind of had a few beers or whatever. Anything else, don't take it to heart.
Or take it to heart, because we meant what we said.
And we'll catch you all next session. By the way, the next season will be season 15,
12.
I believe it is. No,
13.
it's 15 of our Delta Green scenarios, and it will be Convergence. So stay tuned and look forward to that.
Hell.
All right,
And
brothers.
keep the faith.
Hell yeah. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us once again on Roll the Hard 20 podcast. Remember, you can find us and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible. And if you like what you're listening to, leave us that 5-star rating and review. We've also have a YouTube channel at Roll the Hard 20, so if you're into watching, head on over and hit that subscribe bell. We can also be found in the wild on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so don't forget to look for us there and check us out. You can also contact the show directly at rollthehard20podcast@gmail.com or head on over to the website at rollthehard20podcast.com, where you can download the current show directly, pick and choose past shows from our archives, or view our galleries. We've got a lot of stuff posted there, so check us out. And finally, join us on our Patreon page at patreon.com/rollthehard20podcast, where you can become a hard slinger and pick up swag. So until next session, keep your dice warm and your glass topped off as you roll those hard 20s.